Howdy, folks. Happy Wednesday. Happy hump day. I, for some reason, just got a frog in my throat. I don't know why. Ribbit. But we'll go and start with the pre-show. Go ahead, Russ.
Yeah, so I attended the Jets-Steelers game the other day and, watched everything, warm-ups, the game, the losing, all that. And Aaron Rodgers said some things that weren't true. First thing he said wasn't true was that there was no energy in warm-ups. Well, that wasn't true because, everybody had energy. Breece Hall was, running around like a maniac, practicing receiving, practicing running. He threw passes to everybody. Nobody dropped the pass. They actually did some modified, snaps and stuff. They did everything. Everything a team normally does in warm-ups. So there's that. Then, right before the half, the interception that didn't have to take place. Matter of fact, I just looked at my friend next to me and said, if they don't F this up, they get the ball in the second half. They've got a lead. And then next play, he tries to play hero ball and he throws the interception. So then he wants to blame it on Garrett Wilson's, juggle and that got intercepted. My whole thing is, I'm glad it took for him to be 40 years old yesterday. Well, now he's 40, but yesterday to finally admit and take some personal responsibility for that game. Because at first he didn't. And I guess it was the New York fans and media that made him take some personal responsibility. So we'll see if there's some growth there in Aaron Rodgers. You have any remark on that, Dennis, since you were in the area?
Well, yeah, it was interesting. I was at Jet practice on Friday for Newsday, and they made Mike Williams available. He practiced with the team for the first time, and he talked, and he said, essentially that he thought he and Aaron haven't gotten on the same page. A lot of that was due to him still rehabbing off the torn ACL. But with that said, and if you go back and watch the interception against the Bills on Monday night, first thing is Breece Hall was wide open in the flat, just spectacularly wide open. It would have been hard to miss him. Second thing is, I think it's pretty well known that the MetLife Stadium turf isn't the best turf in the NFL.
Really? Are you sure?
I'm pretty sure. And when a guy, I don't know that you can blame Mike Williams for slipping on that turf.
No, everybody has trouble. That turf has killed more players than anything.
Yeah, right. but the reason that the interception happened was because the ball was thrown poorly and Williams had to adjust and then he fell. So I mean, in the end, it was Rodgers' fault. Now the Garrett Wilson thing in Pittsburgh, Russ. Wilson's got to catch that ball.
That happens. Like a play like that happens. Sure. But, what about all the other plays that he makes? Like that wasn't the reason they actually lost.
No, but he does need to make that catch.
Oh, absolutely, no question. And here's a remark. David Stern spoke to the media today in New York and said very little. But the one thing he did say that caught my attention was that when asked about Pete Alonso, he has never spoken in person with Pete Alonso about his contract. And I find that very unusual since Stephen Cohen will fly to Japan and talk contract with a guy like Yamamoto to get him onto the team. And yet the GM at no point during this year spoke face-to-face with Pete Alonso about his contract in New York, as important as he is. So it tells me one of two things. Either Stearns doesn't want him or Pete has decided long before this that he wasn't coming back. I think it's the latter, but I don't know for sure. But Dennis, what's your read on that?
My read is, again, Stearns is president of baseball operations. He hasn't hired a GM. He talked today. He said he's not, he doesn't feel compelled to hire a GM this winter. He feels pretty confident with the baseball operations staff he has. I mean, I would think he has a rough idea from someone like Scott Boras exactly what Pete Alonso's looking for. I don't think when Boras goes into his office and says, we want 10 years, $250 million, it's going to catch Stearns by surprise.
No, but players need that little, hey, we want you. We need you. Yes. You're everything to this team. And Stearns hasn't given that to him.
Yeah, I mean, what I would like to know is, what kind of conversations he has had
He said they talked about
I
the
was going to say with Boris, like he would say, he would go to Boris and say, hey, we want him back here, But yes, you're right. It would be helpful if he had talked to, if he talked to Alonzo. The other thing that stood out to me though was he basically said we're going shopping in the off season, and you look at what they did last year, in terms of stocking up the farm system, that paid off pretty well. I mean, you have some young players.
It paid off a little bit. I don't think it paid off the way he thought it would, but it paid off partially.
Well, it may have paid off because I think Acuna might be a player because
that was the part that paid off. And Vientos he inherited him, so he gets no credit for Vientos. They've sent him up and down so many times that it was up to him to actually develop, I think.
That he got frequent flyer miles. But here's the interesting thing, and we'll get to hockey in a few minutes. I want to touch on this. I mean, the complicating factor here for the Mets is that Boris is the representative of not only Alonzo, he's the representative for Juan Soto. So you wonder if this is like but I'm talking about the hitters, Russ. What I'm talking about here is, okay, if they're going all in on Soto, then is Alonzo the fallback if they don't get him? I mean, it's really, and we know that
he won't be around long enough to be the fallback. That's the problem. He will make Boris cut him a deal somewhere else. He's not going to, if he sees the Mets are paying attention to Soto, and to me, it's idiotically, go make him your offer if you want, but know that you're not going to get him. And Pete's not going to hang around for that. His ego is going to be bruised, I think. Don't you, Dennis?
I mean, I don't know Pete. I
don't know him either. I just know what I see.
Right. I mean, I'm just saying I haven't spent a ton of time in that clubhouse, but yeah, I mean, I would imagine it would be somewhat insulting, if all their energies are directed towards Juan Soto, especially if you're a guy like Pete Alonso, homegrown guy who's carried this organization for a few years, especially some years where they were tough to watch. But with that said, if you're able to get a guy like Juan Soto and you're able to have him for the next 10, maybe 15 years in your lineup, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah. Okay, I may be wrong. If Soto leads the Yankees to a world championship, he may as well write a blank check, because there's no way Hal Steinbrenner, his fan base will burn down Yankee Stadium if he gets outbid by Steve Cohen. They will. I mean, I don't care what, they're not going to care about budget. Let Anthony Rizzo go. Let Gleyber Torres go. If you win a world championship and it's because Juan Soto led you there, you have to sign him or your fan base will revolt.
Sure.
So I think that's right. And, I'll mention this. Back in August, there was an event at the Javits Center in Midtown Manhattan called Fanatics Fan Fest that I got assigned to cover. And Peter Boddy of the New York Post and we went and we talked to Doc Gooden. He was signing one of the days there. And Doc said he didn't think that there was going to be a bidding war between the Yankees and the Mets. He said he thought the only way that the Mets would get involved in the Soto sweepstakes is if the Yankees publicly announced that they were out.
I agree with that. I think Doc's right.
I think that's right too.
Okay, one quick thing just on football, because we were just talking about it at the start. I have a weird feeling this trade deadline is going to be a lot different than a lot of other trade deadlines, because we've already seen the Adams trade with the Jets. The Cooper deal with the Bills has already paid dividends. He played really well in his first game. And now what are your feelings on the DeAndre Hopkins deal? Because I think the Bills sort of passed on Hopkins because they think he was done.
He's not done, but the Eagles have picked up guys like this over the last few years, and Hopkins is a little younger, and most of the time they have
like Julio Jones.
Julio Jones, and he had no impact. Right. And I think Hopkins will have some impact because it's Mahomes, but is it a great impact? No.
Now, and the other one, Dennis, is now all of a sudden there's Cooper Kupp trade rumors, And that's going to be interesting because, I've heard, Buffalo, I've heard Baltimore, I've heard Kansas City. I mean, he goes to Kansas City, it's going to be completely bonkers.
Yeah, I mean, he's what? He's clearly a top 10 receiver in this league.
Yeah.
If you go from whatever the Chiefs had at wide receiver in their last game to DeAndre Hopkins and Cooper Kupp, good luck to the rest of the league.
Yeah, the only chance anybody's going to have is to break Mahomes' leg. And I'm just kidding, folks. Not advocating that. Okay. Hello, Hockey World. Today is Wednesday, October 23rd, 2024.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I'm Michael Lagello, and this is the HockeyBuzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. And as you can see, we are joined by Dennis Gorman, who covers lots of things, and we're going to talk about Matt Rempe in a few minutes. He wrote an article about Matt Rempe and the experience, the Matt Rempe experience, as I think everybody is, sort of attuned to what is going on with him. A very popular young player. But we'll start with the injuries, and there's a lot of injuries. Russ, I'll start with the Utah ones because they announced it. They've gotten off to a pretty good start so far this season, unexpected, but they loaded up on defensemen. They added Drury, they added Marino, they added Sergachev, and their defense, I mean, I don't think they have any defensemen that they had last year. Drury got injured early, I think it was last week, and Marino was injured a few games ago, and the team reported that Drury will be out 4 to 6 months. Ooh. The right shoulder injury, and Marino will be out 3 to 4 months with after back surgery. So now they've called up Maverick Lamoureux from the AHL, and he's a good prospect.
Yeah, he's okay.
And they're saying the right things in terms of, well, we're going to address this internally.
Yeah.
This is a new franchise. They started out hot. They have a very proactive owner. I get the feeling that they're going to be out. They're going to have the radar out in terms of defensemen out there looking for somebody, especially with these guys being out probably most of the season. You start, Russ, then Dennis.
Yeah, I mean, to a degree, but remember, this is just, the Arizona Coyotes, and they changed an owner and they changed their jerseys. It's, a lot of it's the same team, same GM. They're going to spend, closer to the cap, great, but they're still a rebuilding team. Nothing stopped the rebuild. Mm-hmm. Guys they picked up in the offseason didn't stop the rebuild. This is not going – if anything, this is just going to keep them in the rebuild. So I don't think they're going to go bankrupt by making any kind of moves. They might do a trade for a pick, like a third or a second, but it's not going to vault them into the playoffs. It's not.
No, and that's where I'm – because, Dennis, they have a preponderance of draft picks. So – somebody said in the chat, Justin Hall. No, they want good defense. They don't want just a defenseman who occupies space. No, I mean, I immediately saw when those injuries happened, I said, well, here's where Timothy Liljegren could get traded from the Leafs because they're looking to dump off some salary, and he's a good young defenseman. They have tons of, not tons, but firsts and seconds in duplicate and triplicate. So would they be opposed to trading a second-round pick for a guy like Timothy Liljegren? I don't think so. I think that's pretty possible.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And it's kind of the reason why teams, when they're going through a rebuild, they stockpile draft picks, not just to use them on the player, but to use them as currency because someone gets hurt, you can, if someone's unhappy with where they're at, maybe you can offer a couple picks and you get a player. So it's smart business.
Right. And Randy in the chat is saying Rasmus Anderson, but Rasmus Anderson's a rental. That's the problem. If they're trading for a player like, okay, Liljegren's under contract for this year and next year at $3 million. It's not a ridiculous salary. He's a right-hand shot. I mean, there are other defensemen out there, I'm sure, that that they could trade for that maybe are cheaper. I'm just saying, the fit is right because these players will be on LTIR for most of the season. Whereas Rasmus Anderson, he's a good addition. He's a good defenseman, but he could walk away for nothing. And, now you could say Utah could turn around and trade him at the deadline and recoup draft picks. They don't want draft picks. They got enough draft picks. They want players.
Right.
Yeah, they have $8 million in cap space. So, they could if they want to.
Right. They don't even have to go into LTIR. They can put them on injury reserve and they got plenty of space. So the other big injury news out there was the Robert Thomas injury, Russ. And this is big for St. Louis because, he's maybe their best or the second best player.
He is their best player. No, he's their best.
Yeah, and he's going to be out 6 weeks with a fractured ankle. That's a blow to that team.
It's not 6 weeks. Can we stop with these? It's always like they always give the baseline quickest thing. Even if he's in a hyperbaric chamber every day, he's not coming back in 6 weeks. But, it'll probably be like 10 weeks. And they'll have to survive without him. And, and he's not going to be 100% when he comes back. So it's a bit of a blow for them. They probably will survive. They're going to have to at least play NHL 500, which they might be able to do.
Right. Well, Russ, I was preparing for you to chuckle and say, "I told you so, Mike," about Max Pacioretty.
I mean, it's so often when I do that, it's like I've lost count, honestly.
But Max Pacioretty left the Leafs game last night after 2 periods, lower body injury.
How's that possible, Mike?
And of course, everybody's like, "Oh no, he blew his Achilles again." No, it was apparently just like an ankle injury. It's a day-to-day thing. It's nothing serious. But Russ, they're not depending on him to score 30 goals and play a second line role. He's a role player.
I get it, but I once had a Honda Civic and it had 189,000 miles, and that's Max Pacioretty. Like, you don't know what's going to happen with that car. I did eventually replace it. I gave it to my father-in-law, and it was a 5-speed, and by the time he got it, it turned into a 4-speed, and that's what Pacioretty is. Like, he's a guy that's breaking down, and he's going to miss a lot of games. Will he be there for the playoffs? I don't know. I can't even guarantee that.
Dennis, that's why people come to the Buzzcast to hear Max Pacioretty compared to a 1993 Honda Civic. But I mean, the Leafs brought him in, and there are a number of players out there. I just saw a story this morning about Tyler Johnson is waiting around. He's doing, who is it? Remember Brandon Prust, Russ? He waited around.
Yeah, Brandon Prust. He waited around for like 2 months, but
he waited
Tyler
around.
Johnson probably has a better chance.
Right, he waited around for 2 months for Lou Lamoriello to sign him, and Lou basically said, "You're not Tommy Albaline, so we're not going to sign you." But Tyler Johnson is still waiting around Boston. The whole point here is that Pacioretty got the deal from the Leafs. He's making less than $1 million. He's already scored 2 goals in 5 games. He's given them more than I think they expected. And if he's going to give them 50, 55 games, I think they're good with that. They didn't spend $3 million on the guy.
When's the last time he's played 55 games, Mark?
3 years ago. Yeah. Right. Well, Russ, he clearly doesn't look like the player that played last year in Washington, because he only had 4 goals. He looks closer to the guy that played in Vegas, but he's not that guy anymore. If they get 15
Who's he on the
goals,
line with? Who's he playing with?
He was playing with Tavares. He was playing with Tavares and Nick Robertson.
So that's, other than Robertson now, that's probably their slowest line.
Yeah, I'd say so, but no.
How's that going to work?
No. Any line with Ryan Reeves is
okay.
the slowest
But when
line.
Reeves isn't playing, that's their slowest line. Like, that's not going to help them either.
And we'll make that segue to Matt Rempe here, Dennis, because on Saturday night when the Leafs played the Rangers, the only reason that waste of space Ryan Reeves was in the lineup, and waste of space because he cannot play anymore. He's a walking minus, a skating minus on the plus minus. He's played, I think he's averaging like 7 minutes. He's already -2 or -3. They're a better team when Ryan Reeves is not in the lineup, but because Matt Rempe was in the lineup on Saturday, Craig Berube had to put Reeves in the lineup, and nothing happened. But it was that sort of point counterpoint type of thing, and they were worried about what happened last year and not putting Reeves in the lineup to match up with Rempe. But okay, let's talk about Rempe, because there was a phenomenon with him last year. The fans loved him. They got to the point where if he wasn't in the lineup, people were pissed off. I've heard that similar things this year because he's sort of been in and out of the lineup. But what is your thought on this phenomena of Matt Rempe?
Well, it's interesting because I think the phenomenon of Matt Rempe going back to last season was he's 6'8". He has these throwback brawls to like 1980s hockey where guys aren't defending themselves. It's just two dudes throwing bombs at each other for a minute and a half.
Right.
And he was someone that I think if you look through Ranger history, you can't find a parallel there. Like even Ty Domi, when he was with the Rangers, he was never 6'8". He wasn't. So he became a fan favorite right away. I mean, he fought Matt Martin at the outdoor game, and then he had all these other fights, the line brawl game against Jersey, and then obviously
he fought Delorier in Philly in like his second game.
Right, Delorier in Philly.
Jersey went out and traded for Curtis McDermott just because of Rempe?
Yes, pretty much just because of Rempe, because the hit on Nathan Bastain and then the hit on Siegenthaler, and well, they had to get their nuclear deterrent. So, and for an organization that historically hasn't had that kind of weapon, he became a fan favorite instantly. But listening to him during training camp, he talked. He said that fighting is part of his game. He enjoys it, but he doesn't want to be known as solely a fighter. He wants to be a guy that can play 10 minutes a night, who can penalty kill, who can chip in the odd goal here and there, and be physical in the forecheck. And as I'm listening to him, like this guy gets it, because he's not sitting back and saying I'm the king of New York, after not even 30 NHL games. So this year, and I think it needs to be said, they've only played 5 games? 5?
Right. 5, 6.
5, 6 games out of 82. So people really need to take a step back and look at the big picture. And the big picture is, with the Rangers, the way they're constructed right now on that fourth line, Sam Carrick is your center. And then and from there, Peter Laviolette can go with the 2 big wingers in Edstrom and Rempe. He could go kind of the skill guys with Brodzinski, and when he comes off LTIR, Jimmy Vesey, or a combination of those 4 guys with Carrick. So, and Laviolette said, he goes, a lot of it's going to be determined by the opposition. So when they played Utah at the Garden on opening night, it was Rempe and Edstrom. When they played Toronto, I believe it was Rempe and Edstrom.
Yeah.
When they played Detroit, it was Edstrom and Brodzinski with Carrick. There's a certain logic to this. This isn't, this makes sense. If you think you want to, match your strengths against the opponent's strengths, then yeah, you're going to put the people in that gives you the best chance.
Well, okay, let me ask you this, because I'm just looking at, they played 6 games and they played Edstrom every game. They played him 6.
Yeah.
I think the Rempe fan base is saying, okay, Rempe's better than Edstrom, so why isn't Rempe in the lineup? And I don't know if Rempe is better than Edstrom, because of what I've seen of Edstrom, for a big guy, he's pretty mobile. Yeah. And he sort of fits into that fourth line role. What Rempe is saying that he wants to be, I think Edstrom is more there than Rempe is right now. But I think people don't want to hear that. They just want Rempe in the lineup because it's bread and circuses. It's like going to the Coliseum to watch Gladiator.
Yeah, I mean, having watched both those guys in practice and having a little bit in practices and games, I think Edstrom is a little more advanced than Rempe.
Yes.
But yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I think for a guy like Rempe, he's going to need ice time. But therein lies the problem, because if you're Peter Laviolette and go back to the Utah game on opening night, they're chasing that game from literally the puck drop. And so when you're down, 4-3 and 5, and when you're down 5-3 in the third period, and and you need a goal to get back in the game, are you going to throw out, the Will Cooley line, or are you going to throw out the Rempe line?
Well, here's the only thing I'll fight back with is he does have pretty good hands. It's not like he's going to score a lot of goals, but he could probably score 8-9 goals. to start off a third period, I might put Rempe's line out there to get the energy going, get him in front of the net, and let him mess around with the goalie. If Laviolette gave him those kinds of marching orders, I think they would get a little more offense out of him. But Edstrom's a little faster, there's no doubt.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's those are fair points. I just think again, like the Utah game, they were chasing, and when you have a Panarin, when you have a Zibanejad, when you have Kreider and so on and so forth, I think it allows Laviolette to shorten his bench, and that was a game where maybe Matt Rempe in that game did he did screen Connor Ingram, I believe, and Victor Mancini scores a goal, but it gets waved off because his foot was technically in the crease, but didn't look like there was a lot of contact. So it was one of those it was a bang play.
But I think, the other thing, Dennis, I think people are forgetting, and I saw this because when he was in Philly, I saw how he helped the Rangers. He helped the Rangers because towards the end of the season, they were a dead tired team, and he gave them energy. Mm-hmm. He did. He gave them a lot of energy.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the things that the guy said at the end of the season. Like, he came in and, here's this guy that's just he's happy to be he's happy to be in the NHL. He's happy to live the NHL life. Peter Laviolette said he was living his best life, and he was just this jolt of energy for that team and for that organization. And look, I think he certainly played a role for them in getting to the Eastern Conference Finals because he drove Tom Wilson to distraction in that first round series. Right. Carolina was complaining about him when he was not getting a ton of ice time in that series. So
let's talk about one other thing. I've noticed the Kakko line with Cully and what's the center? Thank you, Beetle. And I think that's a pretty good line. Yeah. What I worry about is after this year, like, I'm seeing articles, Kakko resigned to doing this. Yeah, okay, right now he is. I think it's probably a little bit of a bitter pill to see he can't really score much in the NHL, and he's more of a defensive guy. And if he's not in close, he doesn't score. Like, if he doesn't get near the net, he just doesn't score. Mm-hmm. But as a line mate, he's good. Is he going to be a guy that if this works out to be the line this year and they say, hey, let's bring these guys back, is he going to come in for a reasonable contract, or does he think he's more than he is? That's what I don't know. I haven't spoken to him this year.
I haven't talked to him yet this year, but I mean, one of the things that they have coming up is they have some contracts coming up. Alexis Lafreniere, Keandre Miller, some guy by the name of Igor Shesterkin. So
that one has to get done, because if he gets to June and there's no contract, they got to trade his rights.
Yeah, I mean, because if it gets to June, they don't want to be in the same position the Islanders were with John Tavares all those years ago.
Right.
My feeling is that's a deal that's going to get done because he holds all the cards. So if you're a guy like Kakko, if you're banking on 8 years at $5 million per, I got some bad news for you.
Yeah.
But I also think he's not going to have the statistical argument. There's not a statistical argument he can make for himself, because they're going to say, yeah, you were the number 2 overall pick, but the number 1 overall pick just across the river is putting up 100-point putting up 100-point seasons. You haven't even put up a 50-point season. And I think that becomes, that's going to become problematic for them. But with that all said, a good defensive winger is valuable.
Yeah. Yeah, I think his agent will call Micah Blake McCurdy and say, hey, make my guy look good. Give me a nice colorful chart on him that I could walk into Chris Drury's office with. But we'll see.
Well, I mean, the Rangers are my pick to go to the Cup final. I mean, I picked Rangers Dallas last year. I'm sticking with that pick, even though they both fell short one round.
Tony Soprano's in the dumps, man. Dallas, they got beat the other day.
Oh, but I was just gonna say this. It's like, of course, this is the way hockey works, and it's the way almost every professional sports works. And this is why I would never gamble Even though I think I know hockey, I would never gamble when it comes to hockey, because anybody last night, the way the Sabres have played throughout the season and the way Dallas has played, and Dallas was playing their number one goalie, Jake Ottinger, and they're coming in at Buffalo. Oh, Dallas is going to kill the Sabres. And the Sabres dominated and won the game 4-2. The Dallas didn't get a goal until like 4 or 5 minutes left to go in the third period. So, you can't, other than San Jose last year, who were, it was like just chalk up the 2 points. I don't see many games where the other team has absolutely no chance to win a game. And, Buffalo is an inconsistent team. Dallas, I think, is one of the best teams in the league. But I think the Rangers are they're the team that has been the least wounded in terms of defections of any team in the Eastern Conference. Florida got gashed by a number of players like Montour and Ekman Larson leaving. Tampa Bay lost Stamkos. They're playing pretty decently, but still, I think that's going to hurt them in the end. Boston lost DeBrusk. Although I like the additions of Zadorov and Lindholm. But I think, Dennis, that the Rangers are the most complete team and the one that didn't have their guts torn out of them. Now, next year that might happen because of Trouba and because of everything else. But this year, right now, they're a team that I think can go places.
Right. They certainly look like they could go places. It's basically, the way it's been described is that Chris Drury's running it back one last time with this group.
Right.
Jacob Trouba pretty much said that on the first day of training camp when he met with us, because Chris Drury made the point a few days after their season ended in Game 6 in Florida that he wants the Rangers to be a bigger, tougher team. And I think he looked a little bit at Florida and at Matt Tkachuk and those guys kind of pushing them around a little bit. And, Drury kind of went on to wonder aloud if some of the core guys who have been very good Rangers are good enough to get them over that hump. And, theoretically he's talking about, Mika Zibanejad. He's talking about Artemi Panarin. We don't know exactly who he's talking about.
Zibanejad does seem like a power play specialist now. It seems like he has turned into that because, for whatever reason, there's a lot of mileage on him.
Yeah. And so I think you could see a scenario this offseason where some big name guys find themselves being traded. And I don't know if you want to call it a complete rebuild, maybe a resetting, but
they'll probably make a big deal at the deadline now because they still need one defenseman. It's not like Chad Ruido is going to solve it. And I just don't – Laviolette's just never going to give Zach Jones the time of day. He's a shorter defenseman. And Zach Jones, I think, will find a place in this league. It just won't be with Peter Laviolette.
That's where Rasmus Anderson would make sense. A right-hand shot.
Laviolette would love that probably,
Yeah. So,
and there's that. And then, they're always going to be in search of that third line somebody. Every year they pick up a third liner.
Yeah, but that's relatively cheap to get. It's a question whether you can fit it under the cap. Just one last thing on the Rangers. The Trouba hit on Barron apparently will not draw any supplemental discipline from the Department of Player Safety. And this is my problem with this friggin' league. Okay? Now, I thought that hit was fine. But it looked a little high, and you saw Barron's head snap back, and I thought that was going to get Trouba suspended or at least have a hearing because of his reputation, and it doesn't. Dennis, I have a particular bone to pick because I think the Department of Player Safety and George Peros has it out for a certain team that wears blue and white in Ontario. Because Morgan Riley got suspended for the Ridley Gregg thing last year. I think it was 4 or 5 games when I didn't think it was worthy of any suspension. And then this season, Oliver Ekman-Larsson, who I don't think has ever been suspended in his life, throws a Nicholas Kronwall double cheek check. They didn't suspend him, but they give him a $5,000 fine. And if they give a $5,000 fine for that, Kronwall would have been fined $250,000 because he threw that friggin' check every single game. So, I mean, there's the inconsistency of the Department of Player Safety drives me batty.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think people know what is suspendable, what is finable anymore. People, especially people who are terminally online, talk about the wheel of justice. Right. But that, and to me, that's so problematic, because if you don't know what is a finable incident, what is a suspendable incident, then it's the Wild West.
And I think, honestly, Dennis, I've used this before. I think we in the media should get a booklet from the Department of Player Safety to let us know what these hits are, what they're looking for, and what the suspensions are. It shouldn't be arbitrary. They should have it written out. They don't. And look, what's interesting about the Trouba one is when you see it in real time, you're like, yeah, it's bad, but it's not that bad. When you see a reverse angle, then you're like, yeah, he did hit a lot of head. I think the issue with this rule is not many guys are going to hit somebody straight in the head anymore. They're all going to hit him in the shoulder and then carry it through, or in the upper chest and carry it through, and because they know they're not going to get penalized for it. I think it's up to the league to really spell it out. I think they have to spell it out.
Right. And there are some people who would point out that Barron's head was, he kind of tucked his head down right before the hit. Right. So their argument is, what is Trouba supposed to do? And that's getting to a place, I think, that the league really doesn't want to get into. It's, well, if you want to avoid these kind of incidents, then we have to have a serious discussion about banning body checking, and that's a discussion the league does not want to have.
No, that's true. But look, as great athletes as these guys are, a lot of these hits, they could stop themselves from doing it. We know that.
Yeah.
Once in a while, they're unavoidable, though. Like any sport, once in a while, it's unavoidable. Was that unavoidable? No.
Along the lines of one of my favorite subjects that Russ knows, we go to the New York Islanders.
Oh, yes.
Who get shut out 1-0 by Alex Lyon. The Red Wings got 11 shots on goal and won 1-0. And Dennis, my issue with the New York Islanders is the fact that they've had the same problem for the last 5 years, and they never address it. They have one of the best goaltenders in the league, even though he didn't play that well in the second half of last year, Ilya Sorokin. They, a few years ago, were a team that could play really good defense. Last year, that didn't seem to be the case. But in the last 5 years, their main problem is they can't score goals. And this team, early on, it's a few weeks into the season, they can't score goals. And now they've lost Duclair. It seems long-term with, I believe it's an Achilles injury, but I didn't hear any confirmation on that. But now it's that was the one guy that they added in the summer to a team that couldn't score goals. And he was a goal scorer, but not a big goal scorer. And now he's gone. And what are they going to do? Call up Pierre Engvall to replace him? I mean,
I will say they're high on Max Siplikov, who they brought in for the Russian league.
And you got to see. I mean, it's going to take a good month to see what you have in him.
Yeah, and he had a good training camp. He had a good preseason.
I saw him in preseason. I thought he looked good.
Obviously they have Matt Barzal and Bo Horvat. Obviously, they're very high on both of those guys. Brock Nelson's a guy who's been a 30-goal guy, but yeah, do they have that game-breaking goal scorer? No, they don't have that guy. I know they've been trying to bring that guy in for years. Going back to Artemi Panarin's free agent year, they offered him, I think, $13 million for 7 years, and he went to the Rangers, and he wanted New York City. I don't know that you can blame Lou Lamoriello for Artemi Panarin wanting to play in New York City, but
let's talk about the elephant in the room with this team. So you draft an Oliver Wahlstrom. He does have a big shot. You don't want to give him more than 10 minutes a game because you don't like his overall play with defense. Then you try and turn him into a physical guy. But if you go back to when they let him shoot, he had double-digit goals. And he probably could get up to 20 if he actually played more than 9 minutes a game. So it's like, what are you doing with this guy? You're literally, this is probably your only other opportunity to get somebody who could get you some goals. And they're just like, no, we'll just play the differential game here. And they're going to lose the differential game this year. They're not going to be a playoff team. And that's why I picked Patrick Waugh as the first coach fired. Now, John Tortorella will give him a run for his money. But I do think Waugh is going to be the guy because I think he's going to get worn out and fed up with this.
I mean, he was a little, I would say, irked Saturday night after the Montreal game because, fans were chanting on the power play, shoot the puck. And if you watch that game, when they had the puck, they were skating around, they were holding onto the puck, they were trying to find seams, they're trying to do the kind of thing, but Montreal essentially kind of packed it in, and fans are screaming shoot. It's like, well, where's a Bo Horvat supposed to shoot right into that dude's shin pads? That's not going to accomplish anything. But you could tell that was beginning to irk on Patrick a little bit. But yeah,
this is more like that.
Yeah, and I think the issue is, one of the issues is just where's the goal scoring coming from, and it's been a topic of conversation under Lane Lambert, under Barry Trotz for a little bit, and now under Patrick Waugh. And the problem is until they can find a goal scorer, whether it's in a draft, in a trade, in a free agent signing, people are still going to keep asking that very fundamental question. Now, obviously they took Cole Yzerman in the first round of the draft, but he's still he's 17 years old, 18 years old. He's
18, going on 19.
Yeah,
he's going to play 2 years there, but he's off to a great start. But you got to let him round out his game. You do,
right. He's clearly not ready for the NHL, and Lou Lamoriello, his philosophy is he would rather wait. He'd rather be 1 year late on a guy than 1 year early. So right. No, I don't think there's any shot that Cole Yzerman is coming out after this season.
Right, I agree.
Last thing, I just was scanning through and saw this story. It's a couple days old, but it's amusing. Apparently, there is a developer in Reno, Nevada, who is seeking public funding of a $1 billion project that includes a 10,000-seat arena that may be focused on getting an AHL team. I'll give you 3 guesses of the name of that developer.
Marullo?
You got it there. Alex Morello. I mean, this guy doesn't stop. He's relentless. Now, the only smart thing he did, he knows that he'll never get back in the NHL because they excised that tumor out of the league by doing what they did, and it was a great maneuver by Gary Bettman to give him the promissory thing. He was never going to get that building built in Arizona. Now he's going to try and get in the AHL, and
he's not going to get this one built either because with all that's going on with the A's, they got to finish that project first.
Well, this is Reno. That's not Vegas. It's Reno.
But it's still in the state of Nevada.
Yes. Yeah. Good luck, Alex.
Ultimately, he's going to want to get state funds.
Yeah, good luck, Alex. Maybe you can get something built in like Nigeria or Uganda, or
then there'll be 2 AHL teams in Nevada. Does that make any sense for the AHL? No. I mean Henderson is for Vegas, and I'm right. Sorry, I don't remember where Salt Lake or the. No, but Reno would be this other one. Like, why would the AHL do that?
Yeah, I mean, is right now where is Utah's minor league team?
Oh, where did Utah go?
Actually, I'll look up just by looking at Maverick.
No.
Well, no. I'm looking.
They do play in the suburb in Arizona. I forget where it is now.
Oh, Tucson.
Tucson.
Yeah, right now they're in Tucson, and Morello might own that one still. So
he does.
He could move. Yeah, he could move the franchise there, but
move the franchise. What a novel idea.
Yeah, what a shot. Yeah. Anyway, Dennis, thank you for coming on today. We appreciate it, and we'll pay attention to some of the things that you write out there about the Rangers and other subjects. And Russ, we don't care what you write about.
It's all right. I don't need your affirmations.
You're not going to get it. For Dennis Gorman, for Russ Cohen, I'm Michael Agello. Thank you for watching. And remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey.